All right, in today's video, we're talking about ADA accessible parking spaces. This is something that you need to know when doing parking lot striping jobs. We've all seen it when we go to a parking lot where we see an ADA symbol striped on the ground with no access aisle. That's a big time no-no. I see it all the time. I got a request from this church to restripe their parking lot because they initially failed their inspection because they did not have any accessible parking to indicate handicap parking areas. As a result of them initially failing their first inspection, they called me to restripe the parking lot for them. When they initially called me, they said, oh, well, we just need two handicap spaces to be put in our parking lot, and then we'll just call him back out, and he'll examine it, and then after that, it'll be fine. We can open up, and everything's good. Well, when you put it like that, without taking the necessary precautionary steps, if you just go out there and lay a handicap symbol in just some random place because the customer asks you to, you can be a result of them failing their inspection. I'll show you the picture of the parking lot. Here is the picture of the parking lot. Right here is the parking lot that I got called to service and restripe. You have an access aisle here, kind of an access aisle, then an access aisle here, and then it kind of goes at an acute angle. Initially, the customer asked me to put a symbol right there and a symbol right there. Most people would have just said, okay, fine, no problem, then stripe 2 right there, and then done deal. I asked him some questions about the inspector. Did he say where he wanted them? What did he say? Did y'all have a conversation of where to put him at? And he just said, well, I just put him anywhere. You can't put him anywhere. In most cases, you can probably restripe it and nobody's going to say anything because most people won't even catch it. It's just, as long as it just appears to look good, then that's all, and that's all fine and good. And that might be for them, but for you, it is a potential liability. I'll show you what I mean. We go back here, and I want to show you this right here. You see this right here, this acute angle, okay? Because initially he wanted a logo right there and a logo right there. Call it handicap, done deal, right? Well, we go over here to this accessible parking spaces, an information sheet. It's good for you to keep one of these, a physical copy and a digital copy on hand because you're going to need it. But right here, you can see it gives you some dimensions over here to your left about the ADA parking space right here. So we see the accessible minimum with access aisles for cars, okay? So you're looking at it right here. The access aisle in the center is to be 60 inches minimum, all right? That is where people can get out of their car safely, wheelchairs, handicapped people, so on and so forth, all right? So there needs to be a 60-inch minimum access aisle. The access aisles have to be the full length of the parking space, okay? Now, go back to our parking lot, all right? What do you see here whenever we look at the parking lot? If the access aisle has to be 60 inches minimum, I can tell you right now that I was already out there, but I'm just showing you this as a good example so you don't make this mistake. 60-inch minimum, right? Now, initially, the customer wanted me to put the handicap symbols right here and right here. Well, I know that I have a 60-inch minimum standard that I have to meet because the last thing you want to do as the service provider is to do what the customer asks you to do, then the inspector comes back out. The customer thinks that they're going to pass the inspection. Well, when the inspector comes back out, he might say, yeah, you got the little handicap things on the ground to indicate the parking, but you're still not in code because you don't have a 60-inch minimum on your width of your access aisle. This is not an access aisle, not a full length of it at all. Okay? Now, let's go back to our paper. That is for cars. So there needs to be, parking spaces shall be a 96 inches wide minimum. So the parking spaces need to be 96-inch wide minimum, marked to define the width, and the maximum slope in all directions is 148. Okay, it shows us right here what we need to do. 96, 60, 96. Okay, right here, the boundary of the access aisle must be clearly marked as to discourage parking in it. That's so people can get in and out of wheelchairs, out of the van, so on and so forth, okay? Right here, you have van accessible parking spaces with 60-inch minimum, okay? This is a combination of the two. You see the van on the left, right here, okay? Then you see the car on the right. This is a combination of van accessible parking, okay? 132-inch minimum, that is of the parking width of the actual space, 60-inch minimum of the access aisle. Remember, it has to be the full length of the parking space. Also, with a car on the right side of 96 inches minimum, okay? It's very important that when you restripe these jobs, you're not just going out there and putting a handicap symbol wherever the customer requests, because the customer might not know that when the inspector comes out next time, they could potentially fail the inspection again because it's still not being code. Our responsibility is to inform the customer of the code because we want to get them in code. We don't just want to paint some logos on the ground, take their money, and then they fail again. That what we want to do as a service provider is provide value in our service that makes sure that they are up to code. Look right down here at the bottom, okay? Van accessible parking space width, okay? So this is just van accessible, okay? The difference is there's a 96-inch minimum, 96-inch minimum access aisle, and then a 96. So it has to be 96, 96, 96. Whereas up here, when there's a van and a car combo, it's 132, 60, and 96. Now, this is what I suggested to the customer, okay? Look right here. I want to show you this. The parking space of accessible route over here, right? Accessible parking spaces with a 60-inch minimum with access aisles for cars. I want to show you this that is in the parking lot, and this is what I suggested to the customer. Okay, let's go back over here to our map. Okay, let's go back over here to our map. All right, now look right over here. Okay, I don't know if you can see that. Let's zoom in. Let's zoom in. You see that right by the building? So you have one line, two lines. So there's 3 spaces right here. Okay, and we're not even talking about signage. Okay, they need signage. I told him that he needed signage. He said the inspector didn't say anything about signage, whatever. But it's their responsibility to make sure that signage is installed. You see these 3 spaces right here. What I suggested to the customer is that I put a handicap symbol right there. I put a handicap symbol right there. Then I put an access aisle right here in the middle. Because that way you have accessible parking with 2 areas that are side by side with an access aisle right in the middle. And it's the closest to the building. Ideally, that is what you want to do. You have to inform the customer about code enforcement. Because if you don't inform the customer about code enforcement, when the inspector comes back out, he's going to fail him. And guess who's going to be responsible for restriping it? You are. And it's just easier to do things right the first time, because if you don't do it right the first time, you're going to have to come back out there, potentially pressure wash the paint up, depending upon whether it's latex or oil based, how long you're going to be out there washing for. And then even after you make an attempt to pull it up, which you're probably not going to have the best of luck, there's obviously going to be some residue left of what you striped previously. Then you're going to have to turn around and do it right the second time, and it's just going to look sloppy. When you're doing these ADA accessible parking lot spaces, it's important to remember that you do it right the first time. Thanks for watching. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, please hit the subscribe button. Help me grow the channel. I would really appreciate it. If you found this information and this content valuable, please consider liking the video, and we will see you in the next one. All right, later.